Hi, everybody. We're here for part 3 of 5 in the webinar Clear Equals Kind, Essentials of Classroom Relationships. So let's get going. Okay, let's pause, check in, and just take a minute and think about what you learned in this second video. And I'm curious if you had any thoughts or aha moments or some self-reflection or did you take any data from last week? How many times do we say good job in a day? What did your evaluative praise look like, sound like? What did descriptive praise look like, sound like? Yeah, I'm just curious about all of those things. So take a moment and pause, if you will, at this very beginning to write down some of your moments between the last webinar and today. Okay, so pause if you need to, and if you don't, let's keep going. Okay, deep breath, everybody. Let's jump right in. So today, our agenda, we're going to talk about some mud puddles. We're going to talk about the ways that we get in our own way. Some of us are really good at a few of them, or some of them, or maybe you're really good at one that is your superpower, sabotage. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about our own unmet needs and how when our needs are not met and we're not taking care of ourselves, things can go sideways. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about we'll talk about that pyramid and that circle, like we talked about. I believe it was in that first one. Then we'll talk about, okay, if my needs aren't met, if I'm getting in my own way, what the heck do I do? How do I keep my cool when things are in complete chaos? Because that happens, am I right? We all have those days when it just seems like, what, is the moon full? Is Mercury still in retrograde? What is happening? And things are, flying across the room. You know the days I'm talking about, am I right? So what do you do to keep your cool when things do go sideways? Then there'll be some time to set some goals between this webinar and the next one. So that's a lot. So let's get going. Okay. There are 4 main ways that we can get in our way. Those 4 mud puddles. We don't mean to. We just step in them and slip in them and fall, and then we're covered in mud. Okay, that happens sometimes. So again, this is another big shout out to Joanne Nordling. She's the author of Caring Discipline. I recommend, if you don't have that book, go grab that book, or reach out to me if you want an extended training on that. Me or another trainer. There are about 18 or so new trainers of Caring Discipline. So there you go. That's a little thought bubble aside there. But part of her work that we're going to be talking about today is the ways that we get in our own way. So through her experience, she noticed that most educators and families have ways that we don't mean to, but we unintentionally kind of we just kind of mess up when we're trying to do well, and we just do the thing that makes things continue to go sideways. Right? We've all got them. And there are 4 main ways that folks typically get in our own way. So here's the first one. Now, therefore, so I'm going to talk about each of them and make note if one that I describe rings true for you or sounds really familiar, either for yourself or for your teaching partner or for the other adults that show up in the life of the child. Just make note. What do you think? Okay, so here's the first one, and this one is procrastination. And I just had a thought, like, oh, this is funny. I'm starting with procrastination. I should probably put that one last. Okay, but let's start with procrastination. So this kind of sabotage, this mud puddle looks like this. Well, it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm just going to let that one slide. Or, it's okay. Or I see that happening over there, but I'm just too tired. Or, oh, I see that happening and somebody else is going to take care of it. I just don't want to deal, right? So no blame, no harm. Sometimes we may be in a role or in a position that, okay, that's not my responsibility. This is the responsibility of this other person in the classroom to tend to that, right? 1, clarify, make sure that that is the case. Otherwise, is this your mud puddle? Is this your self-sabotage kind of showing itself? right? Good, important to just be clear of who's responsible for what types of things in your classroom, okay? So this one is procrastination. So if this one rings true for you, what you can do instead, if you realize, I'm doing that thing again, I'm procrastinating when I really should go over there, or I ought to go over there, it would be important for me to step in or assist in this way, and I just don't want to. Here's what we do. Instead, we want to act the first time we see that misbehavior, that difficult behavior, that bothersome behavior, the sideways behavior. I know last time we were talking the importance of language. So that's another note to put in your notes about how do you describe behavior that is not the type of behavior you want to see frequently in your classroom. Do you call it misbehavior? Do you call it naughty behavior? Do you call it difficult behavior? Do you call it bothersome behavior? So that's another little something to think about, and to talk with the other adults that you work with around the language that you use to describe the behavior that you see in front of you. Some people call it messaging behavior. Like, what is the message? Their behavior tells us all sorts of things. So what is it that they're trying to tell us? Are they trying to let us know, hey, I've got a skill lagging over here, or an unmet need, help, I don't know how to resolve this conflict, so I'm just gonna bite somebody. Okay, that behavior is messaging, right? What's the message? Okay, so that one number is the first one, procrastination. Okay, the second one is talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. This one's mine. I'm so good at it. I should have a cape with a big T on it, because and look, I made a career out of it. But for the longest time, I found myself as an educator and as a coach to educators, where I just talked so much. Right? Everything is a teachable moment. I've got so much information I want to share. I've got so many stories I want to share. Yeah. And sometimes you lose your audience. Yeah, they're done. They're already thinking about, what am I going to have for dinner? Or I wonder what snack, or what do I have to do after I leave here? Or when is she going to stop talking? Right? Anybody ever been in that situation before? So how this shows up in the classroom looks like this. Well, I ask you to put your coat on the hook, because we want all of our things to be put in the cubby so that no one falls and trips, or that the hallway remains clear, or that area remains clear. We put our cups and plates into the bin after snack, and then we go on for a paragraph about the cups and the bin, or the coat and the cubby, right? When sometimes in that circumstance, just be clear and direct, carry out that correction, carry out the direction, carry out the declaration of what needs to happen with as few words as possible. Oh, coats go on the hook. Oh, dishes, bin. Sometimes that's all we need. That's all children need, is a little cue, because there might be like, oh yeah, coats do go in the cubby. Oh yes, things go in the bin, right? Okay, so that's talking and talking. Does that sound familiar to anybody? So we'll take a deep breath together. And now let's go to the third one. Oops, third one. And this one is forgetting to connect at neutral times. Now, we talked about this in our first webinar, and the importance of that, and how it helps children understand that they're unconditionally loved, that we recognize them, that they are worthy of us going, you're there, right? So forgetting to connect at neutral times looks like, oh yeah, you're there. Once upon a time, I was doing an observation in a classroom, and this particular teacher, we'd gone through these sabotages, and this particular teacher had this as her sabotage. She knew it, and she was like, I'm trying so hard to work on it, right? So I knew this going in. And during the observation, we noticed that there was a particular child that came in, the particular child who had a lot of difficulty, and struggled and had lots of lagging skills and was trying really hard to learn those skills in ways that were kind of awkward, and he just struggled a lot. And in this particular time, I noticed that the teacher did not connect at neutral times with this particular child. I noticed that the connection came when things were kind of falling apart, right? Not ahead of time, right? So that began another conversation of, those habits can be so hard to break. My sabotages is really rooted in me. Amy, help. How can I undo that, right? So in that particular circumstance, we came to the decision that, okay, we were going to actively connect at neutral times. We're going to count it. We're going to write it on a piece of paper, on a sticky note that we keep on our name tag, right? And so we took some time to notice and mark until it became a habit. It became more ingrained to connect with those children at neutral times, right? If numbers are really helpful for you, data is really helpful for you, then you could set a goal. Okay, instead, I'm going to connect 4 times for every 1 time that I have to redirect or I have to, guide in a different way, right? I'm going to find those 4 times when I can look and smile, when they don't have to do anything for that smile except exist. How powerful is that? Okay, so that's the forgetting to connect at neutral times. And the final one looks like this. It's negative talk, right? So let's see, in our last webinar, we talked about those phrases that we've internalized and that we want to shift, right? Some of the things that we say that we don't mean to say, or we say it and our tone is connected to it and it sounds not as positive as we want it to be, right? So this can be another sabotage, especially if you have a lot of phrases that you heard growing up that weren't so positive, that would fall into the negative category, right? So if this is your sabotage, it might look like this. Why don't you just, or I've told you 10 times to put your coat in the cubby, right? You always leave a mess after lunch. Why do you, I'm showing you how to close your lunchbox again. Do I have to close your lunchbox every day for you? Right. Sarcasm is also another something that falls under this sabotage of negative talk, because gosh, we could talk for another long time about sarcasm and how adults can use that as a way to be funny or for humor. And we have to remember that young children can't quite understand that, right? Sarcasm is difficult to understand, right? Some young children can get it with experience with it and all. But consider in your classroom, if you find, oh, I'm a sarcastic person, or my co-teacher is pretty sarcastic, recognize that and notice when you use sarcasm in the classroom and kind of investigate. Do your children understand sarcasm yet, right? So with that being said, notice what you can say instead of. Remember, clarity is really important. Declarations of this is what is happening, this is what you can do is really helpful. So we can remember the effectiveness of using positive phrasing and the importance of using positive phrasing from webinar, the second one, to inform this particular sabotage, right? So instead of using negative talk or phrases that aren't so positive, we can switch them to positive, what to do, what they can do, what you notice, right? And again, the words and the tone and the body are in alignment, right? So use those positive descriptions, use a positive tone when talking about and to your child, right? And I put in this little bit when you're talking about your child, because oftentimes, and I get this, you're in the classroom and you have to have a quick conversation with your co-teacher or your assistant teacher or your lead teacher, and you have to have it in the moment. Know that, imagine that you've got a microphone on, because there probably, most likely, almost always is another child that's within earshot who is listening, because they're learning and absorbing, right? That's their job. So think about the descriptions that you use, and the tone that you use when you're talking about any child, because more often than not, another child will hear that, or a family member, or another staff member, right? Something to remember. Okay, so we said 4, but I really meant 5, because there's a sneaky sabotage out there, and this is it. It's the hidden unmet needs. Oh, that's right. I can get in my own way when I don't take care of myself. I have a whole nother class about how self-care comes second to self-compassion. And a bit I want to share from that class with you now is that we first must have compassion for ourselves and believe that it is necessary, that we deserve self-care. And it goes beyond long bubble baths and a bottle of good wine, or doing, having a great meal, or facials. All those are great. But if we do self-care without self-compassion, then that self-care doesn't have the impact that it could have when we first believe that we deserve that and believe that it is necessary, right? Okay, that being said, let's talk about our needs. Are you getting the rest, getting the food and the water that you need? Are you in a place where you feel safe? Are you surrounded? Do you have people around you who love you and who respect you, right? Do you have a sense that you belong? Is this my place? Are these my people? Do I have a place to contribute the skills that I have? And how often do I do that? Do others notice that, right? Am I at a place where I can fully be the full expression of myself? And how do I connect with my community to assist others in getting their needs met? Not taking care of things for them, but supporting and finding out what does support look like for you. And then as you can help, right? So that's the community connection to that piece. Now every day is going to be a little different. This is something that's obvious. You probably already know this. There will be times when you aren't hydrated, or you didn't get a lot of sleep, or you're thinking about other things that are on your mind. Maybe your mom is sick, or your car is about to break down, or you have to do your taxes, or your boss just said, hey, can we check in after school today? And you have no idea what it's about, right? Can be scary. So do you have an unmet need every day? Maybe. But this one's a sneaky one, because when there is an unmet need, our superpower, the procrastination, talking, negative scripting, and forgetting to connect, are more readily available and show themselves more quickly than if we have our needs met. So this is like, I call this a sneaky one, because it's a foundational one that influences all of the other sabotages, all of the other mud puddles that we step into. So here's a reminder of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So when we're thinking about, okay, are my needs being met? Here is just another, here they are. So physiological needs, food, water, rest, warmth. Do you have those needs met? Next, safety, emotional and intellectual safety and security. Are you able to fully express who you are in a way that's respectful and kind to yourself and to others? Next, sense of love and belonging. Do you believe that where you are is the place where you ought to be? Is there a sense that I belong here? And is there a place where I can put my skills into action and others recognize that and notice that? It makes an impact, right? Am I able to step into and reach my full potential? And we remember it was influenced by Maslow's time with the Blackfoot Nation. And here's another way to look at it. So this is a reminder. We saw this before. We're just going to pause and look at it again. So feel free if you want to just take a quick picture of this. I wish I made this particular image. I didn't. It's the Flourish Needs cycle. So I want to give credit where credit is due. But I appreciate the circular nature of it and how it adds the aesthetics. Music, art is absolutely a need that humans have that was left off of Maslow's. But anyway, here we go. How is this connecting to your community? Is your sneaky Pete sabotage of hidden unmet needs? Is it listed here in the circle or in that triangle? Or yeah, pyramid. How on a day-to-day basis do you get these needs met? And feel free to pause if you want to think about that or write about that. Or again, like I said, take a picture of this image. More often than not, we have a self-obstruction, a self-sabotage superpower, one that we are really good at, one that we typically go to when things go sideways, when we become dysregulated. We might procrastinate more often than when things are going really well and we're feeling solid, right? Talking and talking, negative scripting, forgetting to connect at neutral times, and our own unmet needs. So which one resonates for you? Which one looks really familiar? Now, bonus extra credit. If when you pause to write about this, you can take a look at, what about those important adults in my life growing up? How does that influence the way that I get in my own way? Is it similar or is it not so similar? Yeah. I'll share with you mine. I told you talking was mine. So good at it. When I'm dysregulated, I tend to go right to that. And my father was a minister, an evangelical minister. So he talked a lot with great passion, right? And when he was dysregulated, he would step into that too, that skill, that talent that he had. Whoa, wow. The long explanations that we would hear and get and receive when somebody was in trouble, right? It was long. And bless his heart, did he lose the audience? Yeah. We wouldn't have told him that though. So anyway, pause and think. What is your sabotage? Which one are you really good at? And can you connect it to the important adults in your life when you were a child? All right, so find your pause button. Pause now and write your thoughts. Okay, we're back. Deep breath. Okay, so keeping your cool. What do you do when things have gone sideways? Because Amy, this happens a lot these days. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to keep my cool. That's why I'm taking this class. Okay, I can't tell you exactly how to do that, right? But we all have days where we are on overload, right? We've got lots of on our list of things to do for our classroom. We've got materials to make. We have things that we need to order. We need phone calls. We have a list of phone calls that we need to make, or documentation that we need to take care of, or paperwork that we have to do for our admin team or for our classroom teams. If you're in an admin position, it's really loud in the classroom and you happen to be sensory sensitive to sound. Or you have a headache or a stomach ache or a toothache, right? And in addition to all that, somebody just threw up and they didn't throw up on the tile, which would have been considerate. They threw up on the carpet or maybe on your shoes. Anybody? Has that ever happened to anybody? Well, that was a day. Or you've got other things on your mind. Your mom may be sick. Your car might need a very expensive repair. I mean, this list can go on and on and on. We're human. Life happens. And sometimes things just do pile up. And Amy, I am self-compassionate. and I do self-care, and yet I still lose my cool sometimes. We're human, that can happen. When we practice some tools that we know work for us, have I shared those tools with the people around me? Does my co-teacher know my tell when I'm about to lose my cool? Do they know, oh, Amy's nostrils are flaring, or, you know, her eyes are getting really wide, or I notice them backing up, backing up, backing up. What is the tell that you're about to lose your cool? It's important to let the people that you work with know what that is. But here's the thing, they probably already know. So starting that conversation and having that conversation is really helpful. My daughters are the one who told me about my nose, and that was a clear indicator that I was dysregulated when my nose would flare. Yeah, didn't know that for a long time. Wish I'd known that earlier, but hey, it's how it goes. So now I know, and I could, when I feel my nose start to flare, I can go, okay, time to regulate, time to do the thing that I know works for me so that I can keep my cool. Okay, so I invite you to pause again and write down the things that you do to keep your cool, right? Specifically, what it is that you do. What is most helpful? Is it getting into nature? Is it a self-care, skincare routine that you do? Is it solitude? Is it time with friends, right? What's getting in the way to you getting at those tools and techniques when you lose your cool, right? Those are big questions to consider, and those are answers that I don't have. Those are answers that you have, right? I do recommend getting close to or connect with somebody who works closely with you and come up with a plan together. That's really, really helpful. And they can offer some insight to some ideas that maybe don't come to mind to you right away. Now, if you have any questions, or if there are particular situations that you want help with now, here's how to reach me. You know how to reach me. Reach out, and as best I can, I'll answer you back. And if you're interested or want to do more in-depth one-on-one coaching, that's available too. I'd be happy to help, or to come in and do something more in-depth with your entire team. Here's how to reach out, and we can get something on the calendar. But for now, I'd like you to write down, what is your plan, right? This is the professional action part of the webinar. What is that one thing that you plan to do in the coming weeks, right? Based on what we talked about today, what's your plan? Write it down. Who's a person that's going to check in with you on it? Put a date on it so that you can return and go, oh yeah. Put a reminder on your phone so that you can remember, I'm doing that thing. Did I do it? And again, here are my books. If you're interested, there's how you get them. I want to thank you so much for joining me. You've done 3 out of 5, so there are 2 more left. So until then, I hope that that your time goes well. I really hope that you give yourself time and permission to practice what it is that you're doing, and to talk with people about what it is that you can, what are your tells, and what does it look like when you're losing your cool or when you're stepping into that mud puddle. So until next time, all right, take it easy.